You are not broken. And if you have ever laid in bed at 2 a.m. replaying a 5-second conversation from 3 years ago, wondering if that one sentence changed how someone sees you forever, I need you to hear this before anything else. Your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it was built to do, just a little too well. Here's what nobody tells you. Overthinking isn't a personality flaw, and it's definitely not just anxiety, the way people casually toss that word around. It's a specific, measurable neural loop, a loop that fires more intensely in people who are emotionally aware, deeply sensitive, and genuinely intelligent. So if you've ever been told to just relax or stop thinking so much, what they were really asking you to do was switch off a part of your brain that, ironically, makes you who you are. Let's talk about what's actually happening inside your skull when this loop kicks in. There's a network in your brain called the default mode network. Scientists sometimes call it your brain's idle mode. It activates when you're not focused on a task, when you're in the shower, driving, or trying to fall asleep. And for most people, that idle mode is quiet. But for emotionally attuned minds, that idle mode becomes a courtroom. Every unresolved conversation gets cross-examined. Every awkward silence gets replayed as evidence against you. This isn't weakness. This is a hyperactive default mode network doing exactly what it's wired to do: search for unfinished business. And here's where it gets almost painfully relatable. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik Effect, the idea that your brain holds on to unfinished tasks and unresolved emotional moments far more tightly than things that reached a clean ending. That's why the argument you actually resolved fades quickly, but the one where you didn't get the last word? That one lives in you for weeks. Your brain isn't torturing you for fun. It genuinely believes it's protecting you by keeping that open file active until it finds closure. Now let's connect this to something deeper: attachment theory. If you grew up in an environment where love felt inconsistent, where you had to read the room to stay safe, your nervous system learned something very specific: overthinking equals survival. Constantly analyzing people's tone, their silence, their delayed text message. That's not insecurity. That is a nervous system that was trained, sometimes from childhood, to detect danger before it fully arrives. So when you overanalyze a friend's one-word reply, you're not being dramatic. You're running a survival program that once genuinely kept you emotionally safe. There's also a biological tug-of-war happening every single time you overthink. Your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, senses a threat, real or imagined, and floods your body with stress signals. Meanwhile, your prefrontal cortex, the rational, calm part of your brain, tries to step in and say, "Wait, let's think this through logically." But here's the twist. When emotion runs high enough, the amygdala overpowers the prefrontal cortex almost every time. That's why, in the middle of overthinking, logic doesn't help. You know, the thought is irrational, and you still can't stop it. That gap between knowing and feeling, that's not you failing. That's basic neuroscience. Let's bring in cognitive dissonance for a second, because this explains so much of the mental spiraling you experience. Cognitive dissonance happens when two beliefs clash inside you. For example, I know I'm a good person, but what if they think I'm not? Your brain hates that unresolved tension so much that it will replay, reanalyze, and rehearse conversations for hours just to make that discomfort go away. Overthinking, in this sense, is your brain's clumsy attempt at resolving inner conflict. It's not laziness or weakness, it's your mind desperately trying to restore emotional balance. And can we talk about negativity bias for a moment? Evolutionarily, your brain is wired to remember threats far more vividly than compliments. That's why one piece of criticism can echo in your head for a week, while 10 compliments barely leave a mark. It's not that you're overly sensitive. It's that your ancient brain still thinks social rejection is a survival threat, the same way our ancestors feared being cast out of the tribe. Understanding this alone should bring you a strange kind of relief. You're not weak for remembering the bad comment more than the good ones. You're human, running very old software in a very modern world. Here's the part that might genuinely surprise you. Studies consistently show that people who overthink tend to score higher in empathy and emotional intelligence. Your ability to notice tone shifts, sense when someone's upset before they say it, or feel the weight of an unspoken conversation. That same sensitivity is what fuels your overthinking. It's a package deal. The same wiring that makes you deeply intuitive also makes 2 a.m. feel unbearable sometimes. So instead of hating this part of yourself, what if you started seeing it as proof of how deeply you feel, not proof that something is wrong with you? Now, why does this loop intensify specifically at night? Your prefrontal cortex, the logical, grounding part of your brain, naturally quiets down as you get tired, while your emotional centers stay wide awake. That's the exact moment your rational brain checks out and your emotional brain takes the wheel, unsupervised. This is why the same thought that felt manageable at noon suddenly feels catastrophic at midnight. It's not that the situation got worse, it's that your brain's supervisor clocked out early. So how do you actually begin to break this cycle? Not through empty affirmations, but through real psychological tools. The first step is something therapists call cognitive labeling. The moment you notice the loop starting, say to yourself, quietly, "This is rumination," not "this is truth." That single act of naming the pattern activates your prefrontal cortex again, pulling you gently out of the emotional storm and back into observation mode. It sounds small. It is not small. It is one of the fastest documented ways to interrupt a spiraling thought before it snowballs. The second tool is what psychologists call the worry window, giving yourself 10 focused minutes, and only 10, to think through the situation on purpose, write it down, and then physically close the notebook. This works because your brain stops seeing the thought as an emergency and starts seeing it as scheduled, contained, and handled. Unfinished business, remember, is exactly what the Zeigarnik Effect feeds on. So when you give it a definitive ending, even a small one, your mind finally exhales. And here's the emotional truth I want you to sit with before this video ends. You were never the problem. You were never too much, too sensitive, or too in your head. You were a deeply feeling person who never got taught how to work with your own mind instead of against it. That distinction changes everything. This isn't about silencing your thoughts forever. It's about finally understanding the language they've been speaking to you all along. Because once you understand why your brain does this, you stop being afraid of your own mind. And that, more than any quick fix, is where real peace begins. And if tonight is one of those nights where your thoughts won't slow down, stay with me. Because in the next video, I'm going to show you the exact 3-minute technique therapists use to shut that loop down in real time, the moment it starts.